It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 510. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
So we're having another week when we didn't think we had any topics, and then suddenly we have a bunch of topics to talk about. So it may be a long show.
Or not. Who knows?
Who knows?
I think my only topic is the news this week surrounding Path of Exile 1. We've kind of been in a holding pattern expecting there to be a new league sometime in February, but we got another fireside chat, saying that they've not done any work on Path of Exile 1 because everybody's been pulled for Path of Exile 2. So who knows when a league is going to happen. And I think my read would be significantly more favorable were I not having just finished the Jason Schreier Blizzard book.
Boy, that colors some things, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Why is that?
Well, because it tells the tale of World of Warcraft eating every other project team at Blizzard.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the history of Blizzard from the beginning to about a year ago. And
Yeah. But anyway, so as PoE is eating the rest of Grinding Gear game, or PoE 2 is eating the rest of Grinding Gear games, I had less than favorable opinions of it, but so basically they're not going to even begin to work on a PoE 1 league until after the next major patch and economy reset in Path of Exile 2, which is
economy reset. Is that like a full
A new
reset
league.
a new league. Yeah.
A new league. Okay.
Yeah, so we have no idea when that's going to be, and it will probably take them a couple of months after that to build the league. So Settlers of Kalgur, thankfully, was a really great league, but it is going to be the year-long league, probably by the time all is said and done. So Pohx decided he was going to create a private league just because he wanted to do a league start. And then suddenly it filled up to 20,000 players, the literal limit of size of a league. So I am fiddling around in Pohx League and having fun. But also, it's kind of sad. I am playing something that is well out of my comfort zone. I am playing an ice trapper on a trickster, and it is entertaining. And now I understand Ash and Kodra, what y'all were talking about with Lightning Trap one day. Lightning Trap is a really good leveling ability.
I love Lightning Trap, but I think it was just me.
I think
it was just you?
I've never used Lightning Trap.
You should use Lightning Trap next time you need to level something, because Lightning Trap is one of the better leveling abilities.
Depends on your playstyle, because Lightning Trap is a projectile burst, so it goes with things that make projectile synergy, stuff like that. Stormblast Mine is just an AoE. Works better with things that care about AoEs.
But I ran across the map and dropped them behind me as I went, and it just cleared everything in my path.
Oh, I love Lightning Trap. I do not need any convincing that Lightning Trap is a good ability.
It does make me wonder if you can make Lightning Trap a viable end-game build.
People have done it.
Because I think it would be good at mapping.
The problem with traps is that enemies need to run into them.
Yeah. So eventually I will be switching to Ice Trap of Hollowness, which is a trap skill with a super really, really, really low cooldown. And then there's a specific belt that you want to run with it that greatly reduces the time. That it basically makes it so that you're
weird.
Basically so that your traps don't trigger, but they explode whenever the timer's up. But with that belt and Ice Trap of Hollowness, you can reduce the explosion time to 0.2 seconds. So you're just spamming traps and they're blowing up everywhere.
So the last thing I did with Lightning Trap, which is like this is not a build that I would suggest is good. You can have mines that throw traps with Swift Assembly in the same link.
Yeah.
Which double dips. So you have mines that auto throw traps directly at enemies. So you don't need to worry about like enemies running into them. They're gonna be right on them when they trigger.
Yeah.
And you get a bunch of bonus traps and a bunch of bonus mines because of Swift Assembly.
It's probably really good for clear, and I don't know, probably not bad if you can shotgun it for single target.
And you can for this particular case. Like an individual lightning trap follows all the normal rules, only one projectile can hit, yada yada. But if you're throwing 22 like at once, they all hit.
Well, that's the thing with Ice Trap is it causes so many explosions, and then that negates the whole rule of only one hit per.
Anyhow, yes, traps and mines quite good in PoE 1.
They are.
I love them.
I like traps much better than I like mines.
I mean, me too. But
I'm looking forward to mines existing in PoE 2.
It does seem kind of silly that like neither traps or mines really exist in PoE 2.
No, we get grenades instead, which are okay. It's got to be hard to be working on 2 games at once, especially if your company isn't fully staffed for 2 games.
Right.
Which I don't know that they were.
Yeah, that's the impression I keep getting is they are just not scaled to handle parallel development of 2 different tracks.
Yeah.
And I think
they were expecting like PoE 1 feels like it does not need that much active development between leagues. And so PoE 2 needing a whole bunch more seems to be just throwing all of their predictions off.
Yeah, like I just don't think that they did a really great job of scoping the work. And now they're having to deal with the consequences because that's a thing. It's just real sad when a lot of folks were expecting a league to be happening at some point.
I would like to let all those people know that Last Epoch is probably going to have a league before Path of Exile does.
Yeah, like, and the thing is like if those 2 land at the same time, I am absolutely playing Last Epoch's league. I am way more interested in what is happening in the end game in Last Epoch right now.
I really hope they don't land on top of each other.
I do too. Like, I really like. So, Last Epoch announced their league, and I think it's April 2nd, if I remember correctly.
April 2nd.
Something like that.
And I was really hoping they were close enough to get it out the door faster so that they could soak in the malaise of folks who want a new Path of Exile league. But hopefully, like I fully expect that it's actually going to land before a PoE 1 league. So hopefully they'll get some runtime where they've got like everybody's attention.
I feel like this would be a different conversation if PoE 2 were just an absolute banger.
Yeah, and it's the problem is PoE 2 is a partially developed game.
Mixed.
Yeah, like it's not
like it's got some really cool things and then some really dumb things.
And it's still early access. It has a lot of work that it still needs.
Yeah, and the problem with the state it is right now is it's very hard to tell what is just not finished and what is an ideological choice.
Yeah. Is this game like supposed to feel this bad at the end game?
Yeah, like I really, really would like Last Epoch to have a wonderful redemption arc in the eyes of people that played at the 1.0 launch and then got frustrated that the servers were on fire and ran away. Anyway, Heroes of Hammerwatch II. I have only played the smallest amount of this, but it certainly seems like the best version of a Hammerwatch game.
Yeah, so I think we played Heroes of Hammerwatch in 2018. It may have been while we were still doing Games of the Month.
It was.
Yeah, it was a Game of the Month.
And I really enjoyed that game. I got hooked on it for quite a while. And I was looking at Steam and discovered that Heroes of Hammerwatch II just launched on the 14th. So I picked it up and took a look, and it's really fun. It's been long enough since I played the first Heroes of Hammerwatch that I can't talk about a lot of details about what's been updated, but it is 100% the same vibe as that game, which I am completely here for. I think it feels like the interface makes a little bit more sense to me. But yeah, I've gone through a few levels, fought a few of the bosses, tried out most of the classes, um, and it's just a lot of roguelite fun. Um, it a couple of the classes took me a minute to figure out what they wanted me to do. um, but once I got past that, I actually surprisingly had fun with all the classes that I picked up, including a warrior, which is a thing that I almost never enjoy in any game. um, but this one starts you out with essentially a whirlwind as one of your main attacks. So uh, right out of the gate, you can spin to win, and that was pretty fun.
I'm pretty sure it was actually Hammerwatch and not Heroes of Hammerwatch that we played.
No, we played Hammerwatch.
Now,
We played Hammerwatch, but that was I don't think that was pre-pod. It was early podcast.
Yeah, it maybe okay. Like,
Yeah,
I-
we did
I-
Heroes of
Hammerwatch is-
Hammerwatch for Game of the Month.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
we
know we
don't-
played
definitely-
both, but
I don't think I was around for Hammerwatch. I don't
wasn't
think
either.
I've ever actually played Hammerwatch, but I definitely played Heroes of Hammerwatch when we did it for the Game of the Month. And yeah, it was sort of funny because initially I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it, and then I just got deeply hooked. And so I went into this one with sort of high expectations, and it didn't disappoint. It's a lot of fun.
I think the combat got a lot more smooth with this release.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I know Hammerwatch 2 came out some time ago, but I was advised by a friend to not pick it up.
It does not
Okay.
seem like people cared for it.
Okay, so did they go out of order then?
No,
That
it
there
was
was
Hammerwatch, then Heroes of Hammerwatch, then Hammerwatch 2, then Heroes 2.
Okay, that's maybe it. Yeah. Because like I knew there was a Hammerwatch 2, Heroes 2, but I didn't know if they went in that order or if they went staggered.
But I love the game is really good about giving you lots of opportunities for random loot, which does nice things for my brain. And just interesting combinations of things between the trinkets and some of the skill upgrades that you can get and the gear that you can find. There's a lot of space to explore there. And I'm sure I have a really long way to go. I've barely upgraded a few of the buildings in my town. But I just, I love the roguelite piece of it where it's really encouraging you to mess with all of the different classes because each one of them is giving you a buff for all of your characters. So that's kind of fun. And I think I'm probably going to try to see how far I can get with a warlock for a little while. And then when I hit a wall, I'll go back and level everything else a little bit. Try to give myself a little bit of stat boost. But yeah, it's a good time.
Sounds awesome.
I think if you enjoyed the first one, you would almost certainly enjoy this one. And it probably also would be really fun to play in a group.
Yeah, I think it plays way better with a controller though than mouse and keyboard.
I haven't had any issues with it, mouse and keyboard, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit better with a
Yeah, the
controller.
directional aiming feels a little bit more natural to me with a stick than a mouse, but I mean, like they both work, I think, but I've mostly been playing it with a controller, which is weird for me since I'm normally the mouse and keyboard die hard, but
Yeah, I haven't given up my mouse and keyboard for this yet.
at very least, Melee felt better with a controller than with mouse and keyboard.
I found, at least in the Hammerwatch game I played, Melee mostly did not feel super great.
In the very first Hammerwatch, Melee was kind of bad. In Heroes, I think I liked it much more.
I'll say I had a ton of fun with the warrior in this one. It was the one I got the furthest straight out of the gate on my first attempt, which shocked me. Paladin was the one that did take me a minute to wrap my head around what it wanted me to do.
Paladin really wants you to daze things and then kill them, I think.
But also, Paladin essentially has lay on hands, which helps. But the weapon choice also, I think, makes a big difference too. That was part of what I was not fully embracing with the Paladin, and once I sorted that out, it was better. It was still not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite of the classes I've tried, but I at least made it work. But I'm not a huge fan of Melee most of the time, so it's not a shock.
So, Kodra, you've played some more Diablo?
I have finally played Diablo because I picked it up last weekend.
I really need to do that. I also picked it up when you did, and I haven't had a chance to play it.
I like this game feels so. First off, there's something that Blizzard does in games that I feel like very few other places do, and that is creating a seamless world. And the seamless nature of the Diablo world is really interesting in an ARPG. In a game where I am so frequently like experiencing the game in the unit of a map, like the Diablo 4 map is just the entire world. It's huge. And I've not, there are like dungeons that you go into that are loading zones. I guess this is also true in Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn also kind of does this.
Yep, as did Titan Quest before it.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
So and with how many side quests there are in this game, it feels more like an MMO than any ARPG I've ever played. Because the content is delivered that way. And I thought that was interesting.
That is both a good and a bad thing at times.
Yeah, it took some getting used to. I wasn't a huge fan when I first played it, but I'm used to it now.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I appreciate the ability to get a whole bunch of quests and then go out and do them and then come back and turn them in periodically. I'm playing a rogue, mostly because they had traps, and they also have the thing where I have found a legendary item that allows me to drop traps while I am stealth and not have it break my stealth, which is a thing that I just enjoy doing. I got to do this in one game and it was so broken they had to nerf it into the ground. But it's fine in this game, so that's good. I do find it very funny that ARPGs have this thing where your character is a source of light and like you have a light radius to yourself. And the way they implement that here is there's basically a point light directly in front of your character in the direction they are facing. Which is very funny in a game that has shadows. Because the way I am facing is dictating the shadow of not just my character, but like the entire world around me.
Look, you got a flashlight.
It's very distracting at times.
You know, I've never even noticed this.
Load it up and like just move around and be like, wait a second, that's not how shadows work. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm playing on normal mode, which seems fairly easy.
Baby easy mode for beginners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also noticing that.
But there's also like
They do
not
let you start on hard, but I haven't tried that yet.
like, and hard's fine, but there's also little to no reason to play on hard.
Right. Not.
So
Yeah, you're better off. Just,
Oh, is it all penalty, no bonus?
yeah,
I mean,
basically.
There's a small bonus, but the bonus is not worthwhile, especially if you're playing through the campaign.
The bonus doesn't really matter until you get to torment levels, which you won't be able to get to until you've beat the campaign.
Right, but like, yeah.
The storytelling is also doing a lot of like camera angle, like forcing, like there's a lot of points where like I lose control of my character, but I stay in the same like top down camera view, and like my character starts moving around and like it looks like I'm in the game. But like a cutscene is playing out, which I think is interesting. Like there are pre-rendered cutscenes that have my character in them, which is interesting. Like I don't know that I think I like this story more than Last Epoch, but I do appreciate the way they are telling this story. I think they are using interesting techniques to tell this story.
Like I thought the core story was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's only so much that I'm gonna like. I'm not a mark for the Diablo story formula.
I mean,
Is anyone at this point?
It's as good as any Diablo story.
Yeah, those are all bad though.
I would say it's actually probably better.
It's better than Diablo.
That's
3.
fair. Like, but Diablo 3 left the bar on the ground.
It really is. Like, it's definitely a better story than Diablo 3. Like, I take these characters more seriously than I did in Diablo 3. Diablo 3 was just absolutely ridiculous. But like, there's only so much. Like, I like a little bit more levity in my ARPGs, and no ARPG is willing to accommodate that for me.
Everything's grim dark.
You know what? The best storytelling I think is probably the Warhammer one, because it is grim dark and like that fits the ARPG tone, but then they're willing to like tell jokes with the grim dark.
I feel like it's one of those things where I don't understand why all of these, other than it is the legacy of Diablo, I don't feel like I understand why they all have to be like that.
I mean,
Torchlight.
Yeah, it has a lot more humor to it.
Yeah. I guess there's Torchlight. I think I forgot about Torchlight because of Torchlight 3.
Ooh.
I mean, you had Torchlight 3, which was, I don't know, not great. And then you have Torchlight Infinite, which is...
Let's not talk about
like
Infinite.
another gacha waifu simulator. Like, Torchlight 2. That's the game you should be playing.
Yeah, definitely
Fair enough.
2. One exists, but 1 is like Diablo 1.
Oof.
Also, it has the most unbalanced character I think I've ever seen in any game like this ever. There's a reason the alchemist of Torchlight 1 became the villain of Torchlight 2. But yeah, Torchlight 2, quite good.
Okay. I don't know the Torchlight series, so...
I mean, the Torchlight series is a legacy of a bunch of things, including an older series called Fate.
Fate.
Have I got that right?
Yep. So basically, some of the people that worked on Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, when Blizzard North ceased to be, spun off and created Torchlight. Well, created Fate, and then Fate turned into Torchlight. And in between Fate and Torchlight was they made
Hellgate London.
Well, no, it was a very short-lived game called Mythos that never launched.
That game never existed, though, so it doesn't really count.
I was in beta for it, so it was real enough. But yeah, I mean, Torchlight, I think, came out after that.
Yes, it did.
So there's a lineage of those games of a kinder, gentler, funnier Diablo. Because like Fate was full-on cozy game because you're like a little kid going delving into the mines and you have a pet and the pet like fights at your side, but also you can send them up to the surface to sell for you.
Well, that's fun.
That was one of the best things about the Torchlight games.
No need to stop and vendor. Your pet can go take your stuff up. I am curious to like how far into the story are you? Just like number of like zones.
What's a zone?
Okay,
They
so
are
you
divided
start
up on the map, but
you start off in Kiovashad, which is the icy world. Then you go to Kel or Ked Bardu, I think, which is the desert area.
Skosglen.
No,
right?
Skosglen is between, Skosglen, then Ked Bardu, then Hawazar?
Oh, I'm still in Kiovashad, I think, then.
Okay. I don't even know if Kiovashad is the name of the zone. That's the name of the city.
That's a
It's
town.
the name. It's the name of the city. So what I'll say is maybe I'm just doing too many side quests.
No, side quests are great. I mean, and side quests give you faction in the zone, and you're going to want to cap faction at least once, because so basically on the map there's two sets of rewards that unlock with faction. There's a top reward and a bottom reward. Once you've unlocked the bottom reward, you get it on every character from that point forward. So there's a bunch of stuff that you're going to want to do on your first character because you have to unlock it on one character. And once you've done it, like, so all the Lilith statues out in the world, you're going to want to find every single one on your first character. And then you never need to find them again.
Yeah, I probably need to go and scour for them. Like, that's fun. Like, I am level 28 and I'm in the first zone.
Okay. Yeah.
I am not even close to being done with the first zone either. I haven't even gone south in the first zone.
You know, first playthrough, I would definitely say just meander like you're doing. It sounds like a great way to play.
Yeah, and it's like, is this also a game with 100 levels, I'm guessing?
No, 60.
only 50. Oh, I was going to say only 50 that matter.
No, it's 60 now, and then everything after that is Paragon levels, and I don't know how many Paragon points there are, but a lot.
Okay,
800.
when should am I going to get to 60? Like, how many zones in this game are there?
I think it's 5 in the base game, plus 1 in the expansion.
One big one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, if you ding 60, you're fine. Like, it's no big deal. You'll just start gaining Paragon levels.
That's fine.
It's one of those, like, any method of leveling is good. So,
And then the end game is just playing this, but in harder difficulties.
There's a whole bunch of types of content that you don't have access to yet.
So there's versions of the dungeons, and then there's a thing that's equivalent to Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, and then there's Infernal Hordes, another sort of instance game mode, and then there's just a few different kinds of open world content, the seasonal stuff and the Hell Tides, which are probably the most fun of all the things. And I guess there's world bosses, but I think nobody cares about them anymore.
But there's also a bajillion summoned bosses you go fight, and they're really how you get end game gear. Like, I don't remember what day. Was it Tuesday?
It was Tuesday.
Yeah. So since Grace and I have been playing D4 seasons last season, I don't know. We decided that it's best to pool resources for boss summons because this is a game where bosses drop stuff for everyone. So, you kill a boss and it'll drop like 3 pieces of loot, 4 pieces of loot for everybody in the party. And you can only fight the boss so many times because it requires materials to summon them. So you kind of rat hole all the materials and then meet up with as many people as you can and we did at least over 100 bosses on Tuesday. I don't know how many more than that.
We had a pile of summon materials, and it was a lot of fun. Other than the first boss that doesn't actually drop anything useful, but does drop the materials you need to summon one of the other bosses. And I stole Bell's luck for a change.
Yeah. Was it 2 or 3 mythics?
Two.
Okay. Well, it's just paying forward from last league when I got 5 tier 2. I've not gotten any yet, but I've also put like a pin in playing because on the 4th there's another event happening, and mostly I'm in the phase where I just need to grind a lot, and I might as well do that while there's a bunch of bonuses in play.
Yep, same. I'm gonna just pause until the Lunar New Year stuff, and then get bonus XP and cosmetic stuff for doing the same thing I was gonna do anyway.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, is there a recommendation you have for new players and like what to do with gear?
What do you mean?
None of your gear matters yet?
Should I sell it or should I disenchant it?
Salvage it. You're gonna want the mats. You're gonna get plenty of gold, but more importantly, you want to get the legendary aspects, because when you salvage them, you get a copy of that legendary aspect permanently in a book, basically, and you can make more copies of that legendary aspect on other pieces of gear.
And you'll see when you go to the blacksmith and you go to salvage things, some of the gear will have little icons over it, and that means that they are going to either give you a cosmetic appearance when you salvage them or give you one of these legendary affixes that you can use. And even if you already have an affix, if you find an item that has a slightly better version of it, you still want to salvage that, because then the copy in your book will turn into whatever the best version you have salvaged is.
Yeah, you can eventually get perfect rolls on every single legendary aspect that you can just imprint onto other items.
I was about to say, I actually got the affix that is build defining for my build in a very good roll.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is if you have some of those, put them on pieces of jewelry, because you're going to want to swap your other gear out more frequently. Like, you can survive with jewelry is basically just stat sticks other than the affixes that you throw on it. So if there's like there's a legendary affix that you want to use all the time, especially while leveling, just throw it on a piece of jewelry and you can survive not swapping your jewelry for levels. I mean, I've had 40 level old jewelry on me just because I didn't want to deal with having to re-imprint an item, and it didn't affect my leveling.
I'm guessing I cannot extract gems once socketed.
No, you can.
You absolutely can.
You just go to the jeweler.
Ah. And then I guess my next question, what do you do with money?
There's some there's some systems that are going to eat up a ton of currency. What is, it's not masterworking. What's the other thing that you do at the blacksmith? Tempering. Yeah, tempering costs quite a decent amount of gold, and you probably want to be tempering your items while you're, like, I don't know if you started to see manuals showing up, like a thing called a manual drop. Yeah, those are tempering manuals, and you can add those stats to items, and they're worth doing just throughout the campaign, especially if you're salvaging everything. You're going to have plenty of resources to just temper until your heart's content. And you get, there's a fixed number of attempts you have on an item. A rare item can have a single temper on it. A legendary or better can have 2 tempers on it.
And then can you modify uniques at all?
Yep.
Yep.
Can you put your legendary aspects on them?
No.
You can masterwork them, so that's one of sort of the end game systems. Masterworking basically will let you upgrade all of the stats. So it's like a 5% flat bonus per masterwork, and then every 4 masterwork levels it like picks one affix and gives you a bigger bonus on it. But you can't temper them, and you can't change the affixes on them the same way you can on a legendary.
Yeah, you can just boost the rolls by masterworking. Enchanting is also going to eat a bunch of your gold if you want to swap a stat on an item. Eventually, though, like, you have more gold than you can possibly use.
Okay.
The thing I was noticing, having basically just started this game and staring at the skill tree, trying to figure out what plans are. While respecking is easy and respec mode is like the best thing ever, there do not appear to be that many builds. Build variety appears to be just not a thing.
So it's not in the passive tree. It's most of your quote unquote builds are really what legendary aspects you're using.
Okay.
So it's much like D3 was, where like, I'm going to equip this set of gear, but instead of it being sets, here's a bunch of legendary aspects that play nicely together.
And legendary aspects can be very, like I just said, I have a build defining legendary aspect where I am using stealth and traps, and when I am in stealth, I can place, like normally you could only place 1 trap and it has an 8-second cooldown. While in stealth, I can place up to 4 traps, and they have a like 3.2 second cooldown per trap placed while in stealth. So I'm placing a bunch of traps down.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's other legendary aspects that would support that build type. So you'd want to arrange your aspects in a certain way, and that's really your build, is the aspects that you put on your gear, more so than did you choose one of 2 options in the passive tree. It's not as complicated as any other ARPG out there. Like it's pretty straightforward. Also, the Paragon boards will add some additional complexity, but Paragon boards are kind of butts. They're annoying to set up. I don't know. Grace, what are your thoughts about Paragon boards?
I think they're pointlessly complicated. Like you look at something like a Path of Exile skill tree, and like there's just so many possibilities, and it's very interesting to figure out how you're going to path around that thing. And it seems like Diablo 4's Paragon boards were like, we want to do something like that, but make it our own, and also dumber. Like, just many of the points are uninteresting. There's only a few actually interesting nodes. There's this weird thing where you have different boards, so you get to choose which board, and then you have to rotate it to put it in the position you want, so you can path the way you want around it. And I don't know, that it seems a little needlessly complicated without actually providing any benefit or fun. But
Yeah, like 10% of the nodes on each board are interesting, and the other 90 are just like +5 stats or whatever.
I mean, it's more interesting than Diablo 3's Paragon system, but that is, again,
That's the lowest of ours.
really low bar. Yeah.
They're just really tedious to set up.
And then you also have to find and level your glyphs to finish the thing, which they've extended a little, so it drags out even longer than it used to.
Because it used to be like level 25 was the break point. Now it's like level 46 is the break point.
Yeah, and you can level those things all the way up to 100 now?
Something like that.
It's fine. It gives you something to keep clicking on when you're running the pit, but I don't know. It's not my favorite progression system in an ARPG.
Coridden, tell me about this game. I saw it. I have not played it.
Coridden is an isometric action RPG Anyway, Coridden is a very fun action game with an isometric perspective where you play as a shape-shifting person in which you run around and collect loot, and some of that loot is other things you can turn into.
Okay.
The combat has been pretty fun, so I've not gotten very far, but I've messed with it a little, and I enjoy the sort of tempo of, shooting things as a person, and then oops, I'm out of resource, so now I'm gonna, turn into a beast, and I'm gonna bite things for a minute. And then when I run out of resource, I can turn back into a person and shoot things again.
Yeah, one of the mechanics going on is that you do have a stamina bar, but you have separate stamina bars for human and beast forms. So, like, you are very much encouraged to use both.
I'm not sure how to put a finger on it exactly, but the combat definitely feels very different when you transform, which I think is cool. Like it, I don't know. It does not feel like I am my character hitting things with a weapon and then I press a button and I am essentially doing the same thing as a beast. Like just the animations and everything make it feel very different, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Is the combat dodgy and fast?
It's fairly dodgy and fast.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So we've been playing
boss fights.
Windblown.
It's not that dodgy and fast.
Okay.
No, it is not like Windblown.
But otherwise, am I getting the right vibe that it is somewhat roguelike or like?
It is not roguelike in really any way other than loot being random. It is sort of just an RPG with a story.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh. You are a member of this family of 4 where your family has a reputation of being technological geniuses. And at the very start of the game, you get this gauntlet that allows you to turn into things. And that causes you to go off on an adventure because you need to. Problems immediately occur.
Yep.
Okay. But at the same time, like, it's not a game where it's a game that is going to have continuity. And so it is kind of action or ARPG-esque.
I described it as an isometric action RPG at start for a reason. Because it's not Diablo. It's not like Diablo.
I wasn't sure if you were being coy or not. It's not like Diablo, though.
It is not.
Is that just because it's like less enemies on the screen than a Diablo-like game would have?
Less enemies on the screen, more emphasis on the pace of combat, I guess. The thing PoE 2 is trying to do and sometimes failing. Like, you are not just going to go crazy and kill all enemies on... Well, maybe eventually you will. But the early abilities do not let you do that.
Yeah, each combat feels a little more substantial, meaningful than any one individual combat even at the beginning of a Diablo game.
There is also a certain amount of exploration and puzzle solving, things like that.
And I think the other piece is just that they were very clear that like this isn't like, hey, we're gonna have a long tail end game and seasons, and this is like a story to play through with an end.
Is it multiplayer in any way?
It is.
Very much.
Oh.
And also saves your character state and world state separately.
Oh, nice.
So if you bring a character into a multiplayer game, you get to keep whatever progress you get.
Oh, but you go back to the world state and the story of your actual game.
Yeah. I have not had a chance to try this in multiplayer. This is a Kickstarter game that just came out. I played it I played this when it was an early demo, decided to back to Kickstarter, and here it is. I'm definitely enjoying the early parts of it.
Yeah, I am also enjoying the early parts of it. I just saw a trailer for it a little while ago, and it seemed like a really cool idea, and so got the chance to hop in, and it's been pretty fun so far.
It would be hard to make a more me-coded game than this game.
That was what I thought when I looked at the trailer. So I also heard y'all played some more Battletech, and Kodra, you've maybe had some additional thoughts?
Well, I would say using flex sheets that have most of the relevant tables written on them does help you to not be looking up tables as frequently as you are. I also think the first time I played it last week with our friend, we played a 5,000 BV game, which was 3 mechs and some elementals on the clan side, and 5 mechs on the inner sphere side. And like that is a lot of movement and shooting to resolve and a lot of things to do on any given turn. And the game is going to go on for many turns. So like we did not even get probably halfway through that. Today we played a grinder. It was me, my son, and Tam, and like we each had 1 mech on the board at any time, and it was pretty reasonable to get through a turn pretty quickly.
Yeah, the concept behind a grinder, it's the thing that they play at cons as sort of like an intro, and it's basically everybody gets 1 mech, and when your mech gets destroyed, you get another usually bigger mech.
And one of the things that kept coming up is I don't know if I think, and like, I think the problem I have with a lot of minis games is I look at them and I'm like, there is an interesting tactical puzzle here for me to solve. This is an interesting competitive tactical game. And like or not necessarily interesting, but this is like I should approach this as a tactical competitive game, like I would approach a game of chess, like I would approach a lot of the board games I play. And maybe that's not what those games are actually good at. And today we were kind of playing it as a let's see what happens with these let's see what happens when we throw these inputs into this weird system that's been developed. And if you put it like that, it generates a lot of interesting moments. Like there was an interesting back and forth between our 2 super light mechs that we played before my son showed up, in that like they were just constantly playing a game of cat and mouse, and like ultimately I don't think I actually had a game plan against the fire moth that was reasonable.
Yeah, I was playing a egregiously short-ranged, but absolutely absurdly probably the fastest in the game fast mech that couldn't jump, but was crazy fast.
And it was like, if the fire moth has initiative, unless I am literally putting my back to the board of the back of the playmat, it's going to be in my back arc every single time. Like I just cannot move anywhere on the board that they cannot maneuver to and get around me. It's just that fast. Like I think you could move 25.
Yeah. And 20, I could run 25 in a game where move 5
move
11 is fast.
Yeah, I was move 11. I was a fast mech at move 11, and this mech was twice as fast as me. But it was still like interesting. It was like there's this interesting game of cat and mouse happening, and like I'm jumping around and you're like getting to a point where you can't get attacked, and I'm trying to get to places where I can't get attacked. Then we went to like slightly larger mechs. We were like in 40, 45, 55 ton mechs. That was really fun and interesting. Everyone was jumping around. There was an actual successful death from above attack. That was awesome. It ended with us scrapping my son's mech, and he moved into the next level up, which was an Atlas, which comes on the board and manages to knock Tam's Horndowl onto the ground and kicks it for 20 damage into the center torso. Like literally Atlas puts foot on chest and just stomps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's Battletech.
And this has been very much my like. This is how I play minis games.
I do think Battletech is kind of uniquely better at it because it is like so evocative of you put damage into their chest. Like the game ended because I got a UAC 10 into the head. And like, yeah, that's the end of that game. And we know how that story went. My poor son's Atlas. I rolled and it's interesting because that's not common because you have to like to get a headshot you have to roll a 12 on a 2d6.
Yeah.
But like it makes it shocking when it does happen.
Yeah, it's really easy to look at it and be like, this is so much feels nonsensical granularity, but all that little connective tissue is great for like making events happen.
Yeah, like it is, and that's the thing is like you have no control over any of like it is literally just 2D. Do you want to try and get a headshot? Sorry, you can't try and get a headshot. That's not like the only way you can get a headshot is if somehow a mech is immobile, and like I think a mech is only immobile if it shuts down.
I mean, there are some other ways. If you're standing above a mech and you kick it,
Mm-hmm.
you get a much more favorable table to roll on,
Yes.
where you have a 1 in 6 chance of hitting the head.
Yes, this is also true. Same for punches.
Like death from above is a tactic for a reason.
The good news is, while that is true, a death from above is kind of hard to pull off.
It is. And you're
It's
also
very high risk.
It's extremely high risk. Yes, that is kind of what balances it out.
So it's a high risk maneuver because like if you're just a base level pilot, your piloting skill is 5 and you're jumping, so you're automatically at a +3. Now, we did have a death from above, and it was successful because I had fallen over from a piloting check the previous turn.
Oh no.
And so I couldn't like I couldn't be super maneuverable, and so I was really easy to hit. We were fighting in a hexagonal apartment complex. It was very fun. And so like here comes a Wolverine flying from the top of the apartment complex onto my head in the like pool of the central area. He did not manage to he rolled 3 4s, which meant he did 15 damage to my torso, which was a lot. But yeah, it makes great stories. Like even the simple things. Like there was this one moment where like Tam and I like ran point blank at each other and unloaded into each other. And it was like, oh no, I don't have initiative and Tam's in a Highlander. If I am not careful, I'm going to get back arced by a Highlander, and that's bad. So it's like literally just like my mech slowly walking backwards to disengage from the extremely scary threat of the Highlander. And then the Highlander's like, nah, I don't want to fight you. I'm going to go fight this Atlas. I, more than anything, want to figure out a way to come up with like a good set of AI rules for this, where you can have like a co-op mode where like you and friends are fighting off a bunch of AI controlled mechs, like using some sort of deck or some sort of like AI cheat sheet that like tells how the mechs react. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, like if you could manage to get a DM-less RPG system out of it.
Yeah.
You know, something akin to the Onyxia raid deck from the WoW TCG.
Well, even that had to be controlled, didn't it? Or am I wrong on that?
I thought there were rules that you could solo play it.
Stuff like that did eventually come out.
Yeah, like
and they work great.
This is what happens in Gloomhaven, right? Is like all of the enemies have like NPC choices, and then it's like I like this in Madara because the rule is basically like here's the script they're going to try and do, and if they make a choice, you discuss amongst yourselves and decide which one you want to happen least, and that's what the AI chooses. Like, what is the tactically more sound choice for this AI? But you were saying there's like a Battletech tabletop RPG?
Yeah, there used to be a Battletech tabletop RPG that I had read through at one time and honestly dismissed because it was kind of made at the same time as Battletech.
That's what I was remembering.
Yeah, a lot of these games didn't differentiate between a war game and a role-playing game.
Yeah. And so the old RPG, A Time of War, is overwrought. It's a lot of rolling on tables. It's a lot of like in D&D, everything has weight technically, but mostly you just ignore it unless you're doing something very specific. In this, it's so integral in that it's like the weight of things is so integral to the game that it's impossible to ignore, but it's still really fiddly. It's like even more fiddly than trying to track the weight of your ammo in D&D, because it's like, hey, what if that, but also, hey, this planet has a different gravitational constant.
Oh no!
Here's your table for your weight modifier, like that kind of thing, where it's like, okay, it's turbo simulationist, and there's probably somebody who really loves that, but it's not like tremendously exciting. But the new one is basically it's a direct 2d6 2d6 plus stat plus modifier kind of resolution. Like I hate that I have to call it the old Iron Kingdoms, but here we are. But it's very it looks very akin to Iron Kingdoms, whatever the most recent one was.
The most recent one was 5e, so no, not that one.
So yes, the old Iron Kingdoms, Sai, but not the very old Iron Kingdoms.
The one with a unique system, not the one that's based on either 3.5 or 5e.
Yeah, and it's also it's a 2d6 resolution system that also appears to be drawing some inspiration from like whatever in the dark systems, like not quite the flashbacks, but being able to use things about your environment to key off of your abilities, or use your abilities to key off of things you want to do. The queue system, they call it, which I haven't looked into super deeply. But it has its own lightweight mech combat system, but also you can plug it into either classic Battletech or Alpha Strike.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do your mech combat as the tabletop game relatively seamlessly.
And I feel like that's mostly what people tended to do back with the early, really the second edition of Mech Warrior, which was basically took the Shadowrun rules and said, hey, make your Mech Warrior using this, and if you're not in a robot, use these rules, and if you are a big robot, just play Battletech.
But yeah, the granularity, once you're not dealing with a whole bunch of stuff on the table, the granularity feels like it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more story there and a little bit less like overhead. Plus it feels more personal because it's like your dude, your character.
Yeah. And you can like probably balance, like it'd be interesting because you could probably balance like this mech is gonna grow, like I'm gonna start piloting something else, and then man, when your pilot like gets better at gunnery, it feels really good.
Yeah, there's a whole thing with like special piloting skills, like, oh, your pilot is more accurate after jumping because they're just really used to doing it or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So there's all kinds of things that kind of push you into particular mechs or particular builds, and that seems like it would be fun.
Weren't there also rules for running like non-mech ground support and stuff like that?
Yes, but you don't do that.
There's
you could absolutely play a non-mech warrior. Why would you want to do this?
Yeah.
But like those rules could be useful if you wanted to have like your mechs are helping out local forces and they have a couple of like armored, units.
But like, I just remember reading through them, and they were like breathlessly overwhelming rules for things that you didn't want to play.
Yes.
Yeah, like I'm not playing this for things that are mechs. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you.
Did you want to play Robotech, but you wanted to play the weird little robots that like went out over on the arms of the things, not the Guardians or Veritex or any of that stuff?
I thought you were going to say, did you want to play Robotech, but you want to be Minmay?
No, that's just a bard.
I do know that apparently, as people will say, there's definitely still some balance issues in the game and ways to take the fun out of it. And unfortunately, I found some when I was just like messing around with like mech ideas in Master Unit List. Because there's a particular javelin that I really like because it's got I think it's got like 11, 17, 11 move, and it's got 2 SRM6s on it. And like, yeah, I'm kind of here for that to play that kind of a mech game.
And one of the challenges with this game and literally any other tabletop game is that there are not to distill it down to 2 types of players, but like there's 2 specific camps of I want to play this game because I think this mech is really cool or this miniature is really cool versus I want to play the tactically correct option to win here.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to know like what players you're playing with to determine which way you're going.
That's the thing is I was in Camp A and I think I am now more solidly in Camp B. And the problem is, and like it's been a long journey for me, as people who have been on it with me will know. But like one of the hard things is like I really do like competitive games. Like when I was playing competitive Magic and like competitive card games, that was a blast for me. And I think card games are a better form factor for a competitive game than minis games.
Yes.
Yes. Like more competitive play. Like competitive play really wants a lot of really discrete, clearly defined like actions that there may be randomness in the outcome, but you don't want subjectivity.
Yeah, you don't want to not know what the ruling is.
And minis games inherently, in most cases, are full of subjectivity, just because there's a limit to like human perception and physical ability to display things. Like, it's why Magic banned all of the cards that required you to drop a card from a height.
Yep.
Because those removed the those are nondescript. Those are much more subjective.
Yes, and also led to like actually the optimal play is now like taking place in this 3D space, and like you should probably spread your cards out so you don't get them clumped together.
Yeah, and like basically. One of the reasons why I've always enjoyed minis games tournaments is that they are. I mean, it varies based on the game, but in many games, they are in fact. There's this understanding that there's only so like tightly competitive they can be, and so very few people are really like playing it to the hilt.
I mean, you end up with a lot more people that are just like, I really like this army. I'm very proud of the paint job I did on this army. I want to play this thing.
Just like I'm here to. This is the thing I'm bringing, and if I win, great, and if I don't, great. I got to play the thing that I wanted to play, or the thing that I'm really excited about painting, or the thing that I just read a book about.
No one has more fun losing than an orc player.
Yeah.
They love those orcs. Doesn't matter, win or lose. They got to be orcs. And I feel like Mage Knight and Hero Click were attempting to bridge the gap between those two game modes by giving you stock figures that come out of the package, and it's just assembling the correct number of figures and the correct figures. Whereas there's so much additional work that goes into fielding however many points of a war game miniature like assortment that it's not just a tactical decision. Like, are you going to completely abandon your White Scars army that you started assembling just to change tactics because you no longer want to do that? Probably not. You maybe tweak it a little bit, but you're still going to play a hit and run army. Like that's what they are.
I mean, and even in the case where you're talking about like your turbo competitive players who are playing whatever they think is the best list, even if two players are bringing the exact same list to the table, there are so many other parts of it that go into that experience that they're not going to be quite the same. There's going to be differences. They're going to be assembled a little differently. They're going to be arranged a little bit differently. They're going to be painted a little bit differently.
But I think the thing that Battletech struggles with is it comes from the simulationist era of miniatures.
I've never left it.
Yeah, like it's just always been a simulationist game.
Yes.
I don't know how, like, I feel like that's at least a little bit of why I'm enjoying it, though, because especially if you're playing with fewer mechs, because it's like, it more feels like I am piloting this mech rather than I am controlling this lance. I feel way better about Battletech when I only have one mech under my control. Because, I mean, just from a pure, like, mental, like, role-playing perspective, it feels more like I am the pilot of this mech.
Yeah, it's very personal. There's like, it's possible to get that same kind of feel as like I am the commander of this force, but it's not quite. It's a different feeling. When I'm playing like 40K, I'm flashing back to my like WoW raid days. I'm like, Rogues, what are you doing?
I always thought that the third generation of Robotech would make an amazing pen and paper campaign, because like they have a few mechs. They're mostly just a ragtag group trying to get from point A to point B, but constantly getting besieged by little skirmishes of Invid here and there.
Yeah.
I think that's why I liked that so much, is because it wasn't just the mech. Like, there was a lot of interpersonal stuff going on there, too.
Yeah, and it's a very different feel from something like Lancer, which I think is, like, I love Lancer. Lancer is super great, but the mech experience its offering is very different from, you know, the kind of experience you would get from Battletech.
I feel like, if anything, the mech experience of Lancer is kind of the mech experience of clan mechs.
Maybe.
Because it feels like, at least in MechWarrior 5 clans, it does not feel like the resources matter nearly as much.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like you're kind of expected to have unlimited resources, and you're in Omni-Mech, so repairing is super cheap.
But also it's a little bit more about, like, combos and...
Yeah, oh, sure, yes.
Like, you've got your thing that you're doing a lot more commonly. Like, if you like Lancer is very much is frequently very much more, if you have a mech that is okay at a number of things, you have a bad mech.
Mm-hmm.
Much like a D&D character that's okay at a lot of things, mostly that's not going to be a very good character.
Yeah, you're definitely trying to come up with a character that fits a role in a party.
Yeah. I love both, just different experiences.
I actually think it's a little funny because, like, there's definitely there are ways to build a Lancer character that excels in multiple areas pretty reasonably, honestly, because a lot of NPCs have very specific counters to certain builds. So yeah, I like generalist characters, and I think Lancer actually caters to that pretty well.
Yeah, interesting. Like, I have to turn that one over in my head, because it is so very different from the way I see Lancer and its characters.
It is interesting because, like, even in our current Lancer game, like my character's role is a little weird because I'm kind of a striker and kind of a defender.
But you also have a character that is doing a thing.
Yes, I definitely have very common turns. I'm trying to activate NHPs.
Well, that is probably a show, and we will be bumping it legitimately half the topics we assembled to next week.
Oh, well.
That's how we do.
At least that takes the stress off us next week to come up with something to say. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. See you.